First of all, faith requires a reset of our thinking. It requires a risk that's always exciting, always challenging. But finally it requires a relationship. It's not a gimmick, it's not a magic formula. It's not do this, and thinking you can back God into the corner and say, well, I've given you my faith, now you've got to perform. God doesn't operate like that. You can't box him in. Jesus said of the Spirit, he's like the wind. I wrote in the, I think it's either Sunday Bulletin or the forecast this past week. I'm coming out of Walmart. I dropped a receipt that I needed. You know, I went down to pick it up. As soon as I went down to pick it up, what happened? Gust of wind came. Blew it about 4 feet later. I walk over to it, it's sitting there. I go to pick it up. Right as I go to pick it up, the wind comes, blows it. And each time it was like in a different direction. And I think, I'm on God's candid camera. And he's having a great time watching me chase the wind. And yet I can tell you that's the way my life is many times. When I get away from the way God has already said, this is how I operate. This is the way faith works. And it served well for 2,000 years, and it will serve you well if you'll operate according to our principles. But again, it's not the principles, it's the person. And so the story I close with is, the house is on fire. And they had gotten most of the people out of the house, but one little boy who lived on the second floor made his way outside of his window onto the roof. And the fire trucks were gathered there, and the smoke was billowing up over the eave of the house, and the fires were coming up from the second floor. And there's the father of the young son there on the ground and crying out to his little boy because he had seen where he was, and crying out to his little boy, "Jump, son, jump!" And his little boy just stood there and just shook his head because he's terrified. And his father cries out again, "Jump, son, jump!" And the little boy is terrified. He's crying. He says, "But Dad, I can't see you. How do you expect me to jump?" And his father said, "It's not important that you see me. What's important is I see you. I see you. That's the reason to jump." Because faith is not moving when you see God. Faith is moving when you trust that you're the apple of God's eye and that he keeps his eye on you. And even when you can't see the invisible God, if his eye is on the sparrow, then you know he watches you. Turn to someone and say, he's got his eyes on you. Okay? Who was it that did this? Look at you. Who's that? Who's that? What's the actor who does that?
Robert DeNiro.
Robert DeNiro.
Yeah.
He's the parent.
Do that. Okay? But let it be God, not Robert De Niro. Okay? Let's pray. Lord,